Shoot. Family. All right. We're in business. Hope you've been having a great week. It has been a busy and productive week for me, but I can't complain at all. It's been a good, good week. Welcome back to Thursday Night Book Club, where we are continuing. What are we reading? Makes Me Wanna Holler. One of my favorite books from when I was in high school, Pee Wee. I read that book. We are on our root chakra. That's why you see the red background. Element for your root chakra for grounding is earth. Your root chakra is about your safety, your security, your grounding, your stability. So feeling a part of this world and not disconnected is your root chakra. That's the energy good for that. What I say, the color is red, the element is earth. So we are going to do our routine. I got out my heart drum. I might ting that a couple of times. So we're gonna do our bowl like we always do. We're gonna do our breathing exercise on Tuesday. We did. If you got some time, man, make sure you show up on Tuesdays. It's Tuesdays we do. It's all about healing. So I'm not reading to everybody, but it's all about healing. We have been talking about emotional intelligence and a couple of other things, but we are moving on to have some weird and interesting things around forgiveness. So I think next week we're going to talk about our apology language and how we like to receive apologies and the other ways that people like to receive apologies so that we can make sure that we communicate how we like to be apologized to and we have the tools to apologize to people in ways that they can receive and accept. But that's next week, Tuesdays. You can also join the live and have a free energy reading. I enjoy doing energy readings, just the opportunity to be able to help you and whoever joins to put words to the energies that they deal with, the energies that are connected to them, and the energies that they carry. Like, we go through all your chakras. Doo-doo-doo. Well, I think I want to start with the bow. Not the bow, but I got my sticks. My little drum. We're going to do the 4-7-8 breathing exercise. We did that Tuesday too. I liked it. We've been doing 4-4-4 for the last couple of weeks, so that's been crazy. Not crazy, but clutch. Doo-doo-doo. Excuse me, I guess. sounds a little off. I got a couple of other bowls in my cart, so I'm gonna be ordering them within, I don't know, soon. Mm, that sucks. Sorry, family. All right, let's get into our breathing exercise. Gonna do 478. Again, if you don't know what the 478 breathing exercise is you breathe in for a 4 count, you hold for 7, and then you breathe out for 8. In 4, hold 7, out 8. But to make it simple, I will do the counting for you so you can relax and just listen to my count and focus on your breathing. The inhales, the exhales, the inhales to take in, and the exhales to release the negative energies of the day. On my count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last time, family. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. For our visualization, I don't know, I feel like, you know, one of our soul family mentioned playing in the rain. And I was thinking about, just close your eyes and envision that period or that one time. Have you ever, I feel like everybody's done it at least one time, where you've had your feet or your shoes off on the ground, or the dirt, or the mud after it has rained. And you can remember how it felt as the water and the earth just kind of squished between your toes. And I want you to imagine that situation. And you looking down, and as you look down, you can feel the rain then on the back of your neck, washing you anew. And you smile as you wiggle your toes in the mud, and it squishes between your pinky toe. It squishes between your big toe. It squishes between all your toes. And as you feel the rain land on your back and your neck and your head, is washing away the stress and the worry. And with every squish between your toe, you feel the earth and you connecting, the earth feeding you stability. It's feeding you creativity. It's feeding you love. It's feeding you focus, direction. It's feeding you grounding. The combination of the rain washing you anew and the smiles and the joy you feel as you remember one of those moments where the earth and the water meets between your feet. And as you stand there and you cleanse from the rain and nourished from the earth, I want you to repeat after me. I am safe and secure. I am grounded and centered. I am self sufficient. I am financially secure. I love being in my body. I am safe and secure. I am grounded and centered. I am self sufficient. I am financially secure. And I love being in my body. So our boy is still in jail. I think he's sad because his grandma saw him or something. He's having that tough decision to be to walk in his new or his renewed Christian faith, or kick it with the boys from the block. The jail is in, gangs and all that stuff is still serious. So he's having that conundrum that many of us too may have faced. where we are torn between our old self and what we would usually do or what we used to do, and our new self and what we want to do and what we need to do. Chapter 20, Time. I was standing in my cell doorway, checking out the scene on the floor below, when a white convict appeared in the doorway across from mine. He stood stark and still and looked straight ahead. Without saying a word, he lifted a razor blade in one hand and began slashing the wrist of the other, squirting blood everywhere. He kept slashing rapid fire until finally he dropped the razor and slumped to the floor, knocking his head against the bars as he went down. Other inmates standing in the doorway spotted him and yelled, "Guard, guard, guard." Guards came running and rushed the unconscious inmate to the dispensary and ordered the hall boy to clean up the pool of blood oozing down the walkway. Later, when I asked the hall boy why the dude had tried to take himself out, he said that time came down on him and he couldn't take the pressure. You know them white boys can't handle time like us brothers. They weak. It was a macho thing for the guy to be able to handle his time. Still, every once in a while, time got everybody, no matter how tough they were. Hard time came in seasonal waves that wiped out the whole group of cats like a monsoon. Winter was the easiest on everybody. There was a sense that you really weren't missing anything and on the streets because everyone was indoors. Spring and summer were hell. The Dear John letters started flowing in, sending heartbroken dudes to the fence for a clean, fast break over and into the countryside. Fall was a wash. The weather was nice enough to make you think of home, but winter was just ahead, giving you something to look forward to. Time. I saw the lifers go through some serious changes about time. Some days those cats carried their times as good as anybody else, but other days they didn't. You can look in their eyes sometimes and tell they had run across a calendar, one of those calendars that let you know what day of the week your birthday would fall on in 10 years from now. Or you would see the wild way they'd start acting and talking that they were on the edge. Then it was time to get away from them, go to the other side of the prison yard and watch the fireworks. They went off, especially the brothers. They were determined not to go down kicking and screaming and slashing their wrists like the white boys. The brothers considered themselves too hard for that. When the time got to be too much for them, they go fuck with somebody and get themselves in a situation where there was no win. It was their way of saying, "Go on, kill me. Give me a glorious way out of this shit." My time started coming down on me when I realized I reached the 1 year mark and had at least two to go. I tried to cling tight to Liz, but that didn't work. After I was transferred from the jail to Southampton, it seemed we both backed out on the marriage plans. She didn't bring it up, and neither did I. Liz visits and letters slacked off, and I felt myself slipping out of touch with the outside world. When Liz did visit, she seemed distant and nervous, like there was something she wanted to tell me, but couldn't get it out. That drove me crazy, along with about 100,000 other irritations that constantly fucked with my head. I thought about a I thought a lot about the irony of the year 1976. It was the year Alex Haley published the slave epic Roots, and the country was celebrating 200 years of its freedom from tyranny. It seemed that every time, which is crazy. It seemed that time every time I opened a magazine or walked past a TV set, there was talk about the year-long bicentennial celebration. I heard white people brag about being free, white and 21. There I was, black, 21, and in the penitentiary. It seemed I'd gotten it all wrong. It was a weird feeling being on the edge and knowing that there's not much that you can do about it. But hang on, you can't get help from prison depression. You can't go to the counselor and say, "Look, I need a weekend pass. This punishment thing is getting more of me than I think it was intended to take. I didn't want to admit to myself that the time was getting to me that much, let alone admit to somebody else. So I determined to do the macho thing, suffer quietly. Sometimes it got so bad that I whispered to myself, hold on, Nate, hold on. Frustrated and depressed, I went to prison and brought a green spiral bound tablet and started journaling, partly out of the need to capture my fears and feelings, and partly to practice using the new words I learned. I adopted a journal theme, a quote I ran across by the writer Oliver Wendell Holmes as encouragement to keep me pushing ahead and holding on. I find the great thing in this world is not so much where we stand as in what direction we are moving. To reach the port of heaven, we must sail, sometimes with the wind and sometimes against it, but we must sail and not drift nor lie at anchor. It made me feel better sometimes to get something down on paper just like I felt it. It brought some kind of relief to be able to describe my pain. It was like if I could describe it, it lost some of its power over me. I jotted down the innermost thoughts I couldn't verbalize to anyone else, recorded what I saw around me, and expressed feelings inspired by things I read. Often the thoughts I wrote down reflected my struggle with time. Each day I inspire myself with the hope that by some miracle of God or act of legislation, I will soon regain my freedom. However, from occasional conversations, I find that many other inmates have entertained the same hope for years. May 21st, 1976. Even the guys doing less than life had hard time. Anything in the double digits, 10 years to serve, 20, 40, 60 could be a backbreaker. I had a buddy, Cincinnati, real outgoing cat. Every time you saw him, he was talking buku trash. But Cincinnati was doing a hard 40, and it drove him up the wall at least twice a week. He fought it by trying to keep super busy. With the white towel hung loosely over his shoulder, several cartons of cigarettes tucked under his arm, Cincinnati, we called him that because that's where he's from, would bob briskly across the yard, intent on his mission. He'd stop and jawbone with the group of guys hanging out near the canteen, then handed a carton of cigarettes to one of them and hurried off to the next meeting. Cincinnati was one of several major dealers at Southampton who used the drug peddling skills they learned on the streets to exploit the crude prison economy. In that economy, cigarettes replaced money as the medium of exchange. Favors and merchandise were negotiated in their turn in terms of their worth of packs of cigarettes. For 12 cartons of cigarettes, a guy could take out a contract to have somebody set up a drug bust or get them double banked or shanked. Hmm. 8 packs could get you a snappy pair of prison Bourgains from one of the brothers on the shoe shop crew. For 3 packs each week, laundry workers would see to it your shirts and pants were crisply starched. Cincinnati liked to get his gray prison shirt starched so that he could turn up the collar and look real cool. The really swift dealers found ways to convert a portion of their goods to forbidden cash, which they used to bribe the guards to get them reefer and liquor or save for their eventual return to the streets. Cincinnati, who was about 2 years older than me and had logged a lot more street time, was penitentiary rich. He decorated his cell with plush blue towels and stockpiled so much stuff that the rear wall of his cell looked like a convenience store. It was stacked from floor to ceiling with boxes of cookies, cigarettes, and other stuff he sold for 2 for 1 to inmates seeking credit until payday. Watching cats like him, I often thought about Mo Battle and his theory about pawns. Cincinnati handled the time and played chess like he lived. He failed to think far ahead, and he chased pawns all over the board. In his free time off from the kitchen where he worked, he busied himself zigzagging across the prison yard, collecting outstanding debts and treating his petty business matters like they were major business deals. Cincinnati was playful and cheery most of the time. He was dark as night and had a shiny gold tooth that gleamed like a coin when he smiled. Short and squat, he had a massive upper body and a low center of gravity like Mike Tyson. In fact, his voice, high pitched and squeaky, sounded a lot like Tyson's too. It was the kind of voice that sounded like it belonged to a child, but nobody mistook Cincinnati for a child. He was a tank and could turn from a nice guy to a cold killer in a split second. He addressed everybody as bro. I seen him on the yard and say, "Yo, Cincinnati, what's happening?" And if he was in a good mood, he'd say, "Bro, Nate, life ain't nothing but meatball." But time came down on Cincinnati like it did everybody else. He had to do at least 10 of his 40 years before going home for parole. I could tell then, I could tell when he was thinking about it. I'd run into him on the yard and say, "What's happening, Cincinnati?" He'd shake his head and say, "Bro, Nate, I'm busted, disgusted, and can't be trusted." Cincinnati was so far from home that he never got visits. On visiting day, he usually went out to the main sidewalk on the yard and looked through the fence as people visiting other inmates pulled into the parking lot. Other times, I could tell how depressed he was by the way he handled defeat on the chessboard. I beat him all the time and taunted him, but sometimes he ain't take it well. Just before I put a checkmate, he'd get frustrated and knock one of his big arms against the board, sending the pieces crashing to the floor. Then he'd look up with a straight face and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, bro, Nate. I ain't mean to do that." We were playing chess one day when Cincinnati stared at the board a long time without making a move. I got impatient. "Go on, move, man. You're going to lose anyway." Ignoring me. Cincinnati kept his eyes glued to the board and didn't speak for a long time. After a while, he said, "Bro, Nate, I'm going to make a break for the fence. I've been thinking about it a long time. I got a lot of money saved up. I can get out of state. You want to come?" Any inmate who said he's never thought about escaping is either lying or telling the sad truth. The sad truth is the only dudes who didn't think about making a break are those who were either institutionalized that their thoughts seldom go beyond prison gates, or who were so poor in the streets that they had been rescued and are glad to be someplace where they were guaranteed three hots in a cot. There were a few desperate, fleeting moments when I thought half seriously about making a run. Southampton is ringed by a tall barbed wire fence with electrical currents running through it, but everybody knew the heat was turned off much of the time. Sometimes I stare at that fence and think about how scared I picture myself talking over a thick winter coat on the barbed wire to test the heat and protect my hands, climbing quickly to the top and leaping to the other side to make my dash, before tower guards could let off a good shot. I mapped an escape route based on what I've seen of the area while traveling with the gun gang. I thought it through like a chess match, move for move. That's why I didn't try. When I thought it through, I always saw a chance of getting busted or leading to a miserable life on the run that would be another form of imprisonment. Looking at Cincinnati, I jokingly turned this offer down. "Nah, brother, man. I'm gonna squat here. I'm expecting a visit from my lady this weekend. I hate for her to come and find me gone. Besides, I can handle my bid. You do the crime, you gotta do the time, Jack." I forgot about our conversation until a week or two later when the big whistle at the guard tower sounded, signaling all inmates go to their cells and be counted. The whistle blew at certain times every day, but on this day, it sounded at an odd hour, meaning there was something wrong. After we went to our cells, word had spread that Cincinnati had made a break. He had hidden in the attic of the school building, then scrambled over the fence after his posse left the compound to hunt for him. Following the count, guys in my building, I was in C3 by then, grew real quiet. Every time someone escaped, I got quiet and privately rooted for them to get away. I sat on my bunk thinking about Cincinnati, trying to picture him out in the pitch dark, his black face sweating, ducking through bushes, hotly pursued by white men with guns and barking dogs. I imagined him low running across the road, some broad field, dodging lights and listening for suspicious sounds. I imagined the white country folk alerted to the escape, grabbing their shotguns and joining the hunt. Some weeks after Cincinnati made his break, he got caught somewhere in state. It saddened me. He was shipped to the maximum security prison, more confining than Southampton, and he got more time tacked onto the 40 years that was already giving him hell. Prison paranoia is a dangerous thing. It can affect a person to the extent he becomes distrustful of anyone and everyone. Even though my woman had displayed no signs of infidelity, I found myself scrutinizing her behavior every week in the visiting room, searching her eyes for the slightest faltering trait. I search and hope that I discover none, but hope even more that if it's there, I will detect it before it discovers me and slithers back into some obscure hiding place. June 4th, 1946. 1976. Boy, I made that man a lot older, 1946. Jesus Christ. I walked into the crowded visiting room and took a seat at the table with Liz. My intuition told me that something was up. She come alone without my parents or my son, and her brown eyes, usually bright and cheery, was sad and evasive. A letter she sent to me early in the week said there was something she wanted to discuss. I sensed what it was and I come prepared. We exchanged small talk, then there was this awkward silence. Finally I spoke, relieving her of a burden I sensed was killing her. You seeing someone, aren't you? She nodded yes. There was a long pause as if she waited for my reaction. I looked down at the floor and thought about what I just heard. My worst fear had come true. Liz couldn't hang. I'd have to do the time alone. I understood. She'd done the best she could. She'd been a hell of a lot more supportive and reliable than I would have been under the same circumstances. The best I could do was be grateful for what she'd done, take it and grow, as she used to say. I tried to put on a brave face and I said, I understand. Really? Well, nothing I can do about it, but I wish you the best. I would like you to hang in there with me, but really, I don't know when I'm getting out of here. She listened quietly and nodded as I talked. When I finished, she didn't say much. We sat there bummed out, looking at each other. Mr. and Miss Manning. Liz wished me well. Her eyes watered. Then she said goodbye and left. I practically ran back to my cell that Saturday morning. I wanted to get back there before tear ducts burst. It was like trying to get to the bathroom before the bladder gives out. I made it, went inside, and flopped down on the stool. I turned on the stereo, slid in one of my favorite gospel tapes, Amazing Grace by Aretha Franklin, and closed my eyes. The tape opened with a song called Mary Don't You Weep. The deep strains of the full gospel choir, comforting the sister of Lazarus after his death, sang in a rich harmony that sent shivers through me. Hush, Mary, don't you weep. Hush, Mary, don't you weep. When I heard those words, the floodgates burst and the tears started streaming down my face. Streaming. The pain ran so deep it felt physical, like somebody was pounding on my chest. I'd never been hurt by a woman before. I never cared enough to be hurt by one. I sat there, leaning on the cell door, listening to Aretha and crying. Inmates walked past and I didn't even lift my head. I didn't care who saw me or what they thought. I was crushed, wasted. I cried until tears blurred my vision. Then I got up, picked up my washcloth, rinsed it in the sink, and held it to my face and cried some more. Liz was gone. I remember that she had once told me, I'll follow you into the ditch if you led me there. Well, I had led her there, but she never promised to stay. Sometimes I'd get grinding migraines that last for hours on end. I figured it was caused by the pain of losing Liz and the stress and tension hounding me. When the frequency of the headaches increased, I came up with ways to relieve the stress. I'd leave the place. I'd stretch out on my bunk, block out all the light by putting a washcloth over my eyes, and go into a deep meditation or prayer. Starting with my toes, I concentrate hard and command every one of my body parts to chill. Often, by the time I reached my head, the tension was gone. Then I'd take my imagination and soar away from the prison yard. I'd travel to Portsmouth or some faraway fictional place, or I'd venture beyond the earth and wander through the galaxy, pondering the vastness of what God has done. I developed a hell of an imagination by doing those mental workouts, and it put me in touch with my spirit in wondrous ways. When the concentration was really good, I'd lose all feeling in my body, and the spirit would come through and make me feel at one with the universe. It was like being high. It felt so good, but I couldn't figure out a way to make it last. I just witnessed a brutal fight in the cafeteria. The atmosphere was certainly conducive to violence. Hot, odorous air filled with noise and flies. The two combatants went at each other's throats as if their lives meant nothing to them. After being confined for an extended period of time, life does tend to lose its value. I pray that I can remember my self worth and remain cool. July 27, 1976. A group of us from Tidewater were sitting around excuse me, sharing funny tales from the streets and telling war stories about crazy things we'd done. When my time came, I told a story about the stick up on Church Street in Norfolk. Yeah, man, we ran across a dude who had nothing but chump chains on him. We got mad because the dude was broke, so we took his change and started to take his pants. He had done some yellow, flimsy looking pants, so we made him walk with his underwear under a street lamp so we can get a better look at them. When we got under the street lamp, we could see his pants were cheap and they were dirty, so we let dude slide and keep his pants. Everybody was laughing. Everybody but a guy from Norfolk named Tony. Squinting his eyes, he leaned over and interrupted. Did you say the guy had on yellow pants? Yeah, god damn it, me. God damn it, that was me y'all stuck up at that night. He pointed his finger at me. Everything got quiet. The guys looked at me and then at Tony and then back at me. Somebody snickered and everybody else joined in. I laughed too until I looked at Tony and realized he still wasn't laughing. He was hot. He looked embarrassed and mad as hell. To lighten the mood, I extended my hand prayerfully and said, "Wow, man, I'm sorry about that. You know I ain't know you then." Tony looked at my hand like he wanted to spit on it. Nah, man, that shit ain't funny. The way he said it, I knew he wasn't gonna let the thing drop. I knew that stupid macho pride had him by the throat and he was choking the shit out of him. A week or two after the exchange, he came into the library while I was working, sat in the corner, and started tearing pages out of the magazine. The library was filled with inmates. I walked over to the table and said, "Yo, Tony, you can't tear the pages out of the magazines, man. Other people got to read them." He looked up, smiled an even smile, then ripped out another page and said, "What you gonna do about it? You ain't no killer." The room grew quiet. I felt like all eyes were on me, waiting to see what I would do. I started thinking fast. Tony was a stout muscular, and I figured he'd probably do the moonwalk on me if he got his hands on me. He was sitting down, and I was standing. I glanced at an empty chair near him and thought I could sneak him right off the bat and grab that chair and wrap it around his head. Then I thought about the potential consequences of fighting at work. I could lose my job, get kicked out of the library. I thought I gotta let it slide. I have to. I looked at Tony, shrugged my shoulders, and said, "I ain't gonna do nothing, man. The magazines don't belong to me." Tony sat there staring at me and tore more pages out the magazine. I walked away. Later that night, I thought about it some more. No, no, I saw you all good. You all good. You can catch the in the last 15 minutes. So I appreciate you. Last 13, 12 minutes. Later that night, I thought about it some more. I thought about how he'd come off. I thought he disrespected me. I was too scared to let that man get away with disrespecting me. I felt I had faith that God would take care of me, but whenever I got that scared about something, I relied on what I knew best, faith in self. So I prayed, then set God aside for the time being and put together a shank like I'd learned to make while in Norfolk jail. I melted the razor blade into a toothbrush handle, leaving the sharp edges sticking out like a miniature tomahawk. I told one of my buddies what I intended to do. I gotta get that nigga, man. He disrespected me and tried to chump me down. The next day, I went looking for Tony on the yard. We spotted him leaving the dispensary with a partner. While my friend kept a lookout for the guards, I approached Tony. Without saying anything, I pulled my razor blade and swung at his throat. He jumped back. I lunged at him again, and he flung his arms around the front of his face, blocking the blow. The razor slashed his coat. He held up his hands and said, hold it, man. Be cool. Everything's cool. We all right, man. I ain't got no beef with you. I pointed the razor at him. Nigga, don't you never disrespect me like no chump. All right, bro, I was just playing with you yesterday. I turned and walked away, relieved he backed down and grateful that none of the guards standing in the yard seen what went down. My parents came to see me that afternoon. I went into the visiting room, still hyper from the scene with Tony. As we talked, I looked at them and wondered what they'd say if they knew I just risked everything I'd worked for to prove manhood. I wondered if Tony was going to try to get some get back or pay somebody to try to shank me when my back was turned. I wondered if time was coming down on me so badly that I was losing my grip. At chow time that evening, my homie Pearly Blue came to the table and sat next to me. There was a slight smirk on his face. I sensed he was feeling a certain delight in knowing he'd warned me to hang tight with my homies to keep hassles away. Yo, man, I heard you had to run in with Tony. Yeah, small beef. I told you these old Rudy Poot ass niggas will try you if they think you walk alone. You know, if you need to make another move on him, the homies take care of it. I kept looking straight ahead and as I ate. Nah, man, I got it under control. I had no problems from Tony for the remainder of the time I was at Southampton. The one thing that seemed to soothe everybody in the joint was music. The loudest, most fucked up brothers in the place chilled out when they had on a set of headphones. Some white inmates had musical instruments, guitars, saxophones, flutes, and they practiced in their cells at night. Most of the brothers didn't like hearing white music. The brothers would holler through the cell bars, cut that hillbilly shit out. But one white guy from some rural Virginia town was exempt from the hassle. He was fairly good guitar player, an even better singer. Every night before the lights went out, he calmed the building with music. He sang the same song and reverberated throughout the place. He strummed his guitar and sang John Denver, Take Me Home, Country Roads. He sang in a voice so clean, it sounded like he was standing on a mountain, crooning down into one of those luscious green valleys he was singing about. Country roads, take me home to the place where I belong. When those lyrics floated into my cell, I'd sit quietly, lean my head against a concrete wall and listen. That song reminded me of how lonely I was. It made me think of home. It made me think of Liz. It made me think of my son, my family, my neighborhood, my life. Sometimes when I sang that song, tears welled up in my eyes and I'd wipe them away, get into bed, and think some more. That song seemed to calm everybody in the building, even the badasses who were prone to yell through their cells. It had the soothing effect of a lullaby sung to a parent to a bunch of children. Excuse me. Chapter 21, Sex. Ooh. Each day I'd find myself fighting an intense battle against sexuality. I have attempted to obliterate sexual thoughts, but obviously to no avail. I even tried drowning myself in books and comprehensive studies, but at the slightest rating interval, those thoughts burst through my consciousness, filling me with frustrating tension. The battle has become so acute that excessive tension and headaches are becoming an integral part of my day. Give your problems to Jesus, people say. But I wonder, does Jesus want to share my my horror's lust? June 5th, 1976. Just think, before you got locked up, you were getting some every day, or at least every chance you got. You were throwing down hard, pushing up like it was going out of style. Then the judge plays gods, send you to the dunce corner. Suddenly, you got big problems. You got a serious Jones that won't let go, and you got energy coming out the yin yang. That energy builds and builds until it fills your chest with heat, the heat of 1,000 suns, and makes you so horny you get dizzy and aggressive and evil all at once. It's the kind of feeling that makes you want to haul off and punch somebody for no reason at all, other than you got all that energy and nothing to do with it. And you're in a place where everybody's got the same problem. Everybody feels like Superman with a hell of a hump on his back. You ain't seen no tension until you seen that shit. You haven't felt any pressure until you lived around dudes, hundreds of them, who act like they're in the desert with nothing but sand, and they start seeing mirages, luscious, eye popping, thirst quenching mirages. It brings a new meaning to warning, watch your back. When I was in Norfolk jail, Mo Battle felt compelled to school me during some of our talks about the dangers I could expect to face when shipped to prison. He said, the penitentiary is very different from jail, young blood. You got cats in prison that's been locked up a long time. Them cats are dangerous as wolves. They can play some serious head games on you if you don't know what's going on. Through the years in Cavalier Manor, I've known enough cats who've been to the joint to get some sense of what to expect. But Mo Battle ran down specific snags that he thought I should take care to avoid. He ran down a laundry list of traps he said the guys often slipped into when doing their first time prison bids. Don't build up too much gambling debt, man, because a guy can use that as an excuse to try to make you his bitch. Don't trust nobody but your homies. Don't let nobody, not even your homies, put their hands on you, man. I'm saying don't even let them pat you on the back. That might sound crazy, but you'll understand when you get there and you see how it is. Don't let nobody touch you. Somebody's gonna one try you, man, and you gotta handle it. Mo Battle made me nervous in some of those conversations. He made it seem like there was no way I could expect to go in, mind my business, do my time in peace. I was comforted by one thing, though. I knew I would kill if the need arose. If I had to, I shut down my mind and take a nigga out any way I could. That's a perverse thing to be comforted by, but facing the fact of being threatened sexually or otherwise in prison, it felt good knowing that I had the heart to do whatever was necessary to survive. It's a cold comfort, but a comfort nonetheless. Hey, right. Definitely another testament on the importance of intimacy. But he in a very interesting place to be needing intimacy. I didn't fear being raped or taken advantage of. I dreaded running into a situation that forced me to do something that might run up my prison time. In conversations in the Ed cell block, I heard nightmares about guys who went in with small 2 and 3 year sentences but got more time tacked on for cold cocking or shanking another inmate while under lock and key. The thought of running up my time scared the hell out of me. I doubted I had the endurance to do the time I already had, not to mention more. I mustered hope by thinking in terms of making parole the first time up. In Virginia, an inmate is eligible for parole hearing after serving a fourth of his time. I set my sights on doing 3 years and making parole the first time. That meant I had to stay out of trouble and stay squeaky clean. So I made my resolve. I ain't gonna bother nobody, but ain't nobody gonna take advantage of me. Surviving was gonna be a chess match that I had to win. Evenings and weekends. Yeah. Evenings and weekends when the weather was nice, guards sometimes opened the fence to the ballpark and let the inmates play basketball, football, baseball, or jock around the field. Remembering what Bo Mattel said about the need to avoid physical contact, I gave up basketball and football completely. Instead, I played ping pong and went sometimes to the ballpark and sat on the long concrete wall where dudes hung out and rapped. Shortly after getting to Southampton, I was sitting on the wall with one of my homies, a guy called Feetball, chatting about people we knew on the streets. A coffee complexion brother around the same age as me, Feetball was easy going and loved to talk about the streets. Every time we got the chance to shoot the breeze, he'd steer the conversation in a cavalier manner. And I was glad when I heard you shot Plaz, man. That nigga always thought he was bad. I stopped the mid sentence, looked curiously at another newcomer walking by, and said, "Look, a guy, he looks just like Wanda Malone." I looked at the inmate, blinked my eyes, and looked again. I thought, Wanda Malone is a girl. I looked at the guy a third time, focusing harder, seeing the resemblance to Wanda. I turned to Feetball and said, "Man, I gotta get out of here. That guy don't look like no Wanda." "Yes, he do. Look at his face. He got the same complexion and everything." I gazed at the guy again, thinking, is this cat serious? Nah, he can't be. He must be joking, messing with my head. I fixed my eyes on Feetball, waiting for him to say he was just jiving, but he didn't crack a smile. In fact, he went on to talk about another subject, as if his comment about the inmate was no more unusual than a statement about the weather. "Man, I sure do hope they let us get to see that program on TV tonight." I tuned him out. I was still thinking about the earlier observation, wondering if this bid had screwed up his head or if he accumulated of stints in the joint had finally caught up with him. Since he was around 12, Feetball spent more time in prison than out. He started going to reform school when I was at Walters Junior High and graduated right on up the prison system like other people moved through public school. By the time he reached age 18, it seemed he had spent practically every prison in Virginia. He wasn't unusual. It wasn't unusual for his older brother and him to be locked up at the same time. A lot of dudes at Southampton had brothers, sisters, and even mothers and fathers in prison at the same time. Feetball had already been locked up at Southampton for several years when I got there, and the time didn't seem to get to him much. He never seemed disappointed when he didn't get weekend visit, and he never acted like the place bothered him. He was just doing time like it was a natural part of life. As Feetball went on talking, I stayed quiet and nodded every now and then like I was paying attention. I didn't want to let him know that he'd freaked me out. At the same time, I wanted to hear more, just to see how fucked up his head really was. I hope he'd break off on his own and say, "Okay, man, I was just jiving you about the guy looking like Wanda," but Feetball kept talking about other things. At some point, the whistle sounded and we had to go to the buildings. Before we split, I hesitated briefly to give him one last chance to say he was kidding about Wanda. Instead, he said, "I'll catch you later, Holmes," and walked away. I said, "Yeah, later," and started towards my building. As I walked, I shook my head, trying to figure out what it all meant. Inwardly, I knew. Feetball had seen so few women in recent years that some men looked like women to him. The frightening thing was he wasn't even aware of it. Later, when I thought about it some more, it scared me to death. It made me wonder if after being locked up a long time, I too would start seeing mirages. Mhm. At Southampton, there were the chasers, otherwise known as booty bandits, and chasees. Cats who didn't have the will or the heart to kill, even for the sake of keeping somebody literally off their ass on the sidelines. They were cats who out of principle or revulsion chose to suck in the energy, suffer, and sit out the prison mating dance. They watched and watched out. A homeboy in Norfolk jail once told me that when he was last in the penitentiary, he took two shanks to the shower with him every night. I draped the towel over my shoulder and hid the shanks under the towel, he said. The cat probably never got clean, but he stayed pure. Although I felt safe at Southampton with my homies there, the level of paranoia was high enough to keep me alert. The first time I dropped my soap in the shower, I looked around before bending down to pick it up. I read this last thing. I was standing there in the canteen talking with some homeboys when a dude called Tootie walked by. One of his homeboys, a guy from downtown, called out and said, "Hey, baby." Tootie turned sharply, squinted his eyes evilly, and said, "Go to hell, punk." Then he turned and stormed off. My homeboy glanced at the others standing there, and they all smiled, knowing smiles. I was surprised that my homie would crack on Tootie like that, and amazed that Tootie let him get away with it. After being locked up a while, I could tell by the way guys looked or carried themselves on the yard whether or not they might have problems with the wolves. Tootie wasn't someone I would have guessed would get hassled. Before the exchange with my homeboy, I assumed he was as respected on the yard as anybody else. We come to Southampton around the same time and worked on the gun game together. In that time, I got the impression he was hard as anybody on the crew and that he could hold his own if need arose. Dark complexion and bow leg, he was about 5'10" and solidly built. He was loud and cursed a lot, like he was bad. But I questioned his heart when he failed to put my homeboy in check. The law of that land dictated that he should have gone to war. After that exchange, my homies taunted Tootie regularly on the yard. "Hey, baby, when you gonna give me that brown eye?" Tested him to see how he'd respond. It amazed me that guys weren't ashamed to let somebody see them cracking on another man. In fact, in a warped way, they were proud of it. It fed that macho notion widely accepted in the joint that a guy was even more of a man if he could flip another man, turn him into a homosexual. They also called it breaking them down. If they thought they spotted a mental weakness that they could exploit, they chipped and chiseled at it until they got results. Sometimes it took months before they got the breakthrough. Sometimes it took years, which was no big deal for somebody doing time. Clearly, someone spotted something in Tootie, the way he looked at somebody at the shower or the way he carried himself, that made him think he was right for being broken down. I wonder what they saw, and I watched to see how that budding drama played itself out. They jeered and teased him, and when he still didn't retaliate, they turned up the heat, openly treating him like a woman, throwing him kisses and calling him sweetheart out on the yard. Then they turned up the pressure more, touching him, pinching his butt, and calling him a girl. Finally, they made a major move. I'd reached the R1 building where we had our own room with keys. There, the guards in R1, there were guards in R1, but they patrolled those halls less often than the guards in other buildings. One evening, I was heading to my room and I heard commotion coming from another room down the hall. It sounded like somebody tussling, bumping against the cabinets in the bunk. I passed one of my homies in the hall and asked, "What's going on down there, man?" "They running train on Tootie." At first, I didn't think I heard him right. Then, as I thought back to those wild days in Cavalier Manor, it sank in. They're running train in the penitentiary on a man. Life is crazy and it's getting worse. I went to my room and closed the door, afraid that if I stayed in that hallway too long, I might see something, or rather, somebody come out that room I didn't want to see. The next day, word spread on the yard that Tootie was at the dispensary being stitched up. Several months later, he was somebody's boy. The whole ordeal taught me a lot about the power of the mind. It demonstrated that if you don't know who you are and if you don't believe fully in yourself, others sense it, no matter how much you try to front it off. My homeboys had psyched Tootie out by treating him like a woman until he doubted his own manhood. Then, when they had him broken down, they flipped him like a pancake. That's wild. And yeah, I'm still curious that he was on the sideline. That was a wild story for her to be totally on the sideline after he was one who pointed out Wanda on his own. Yeah, man. That's definitely one reason why I stay out of jail. That thing is wild and sad. But cause listen, them crazy kids that when I worked at that level 3 residential, they taught me how to make shanks and stuff because all them kids knew how to do it. Nobody over 12. They knew how to make shanks and weapons out of cardboard. Them kids was creative in weaponry. I mean, we went one time, the little kid I told you that anytime he didn't want to do nothing, he just poop in his pants. We went one time, took stuff out of his room. We moved his mattress, man. He had like 10 broken pencils. He had some stuff he had made, a little toothbrush he had sharpened. I was like, yo, this little dude is planning on killing us in our sleep, which is wild, right? So I get it. Anyway, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week and a great weekend. I appreciate your support, your time, your love, all that good stuff. Hope to see you next Tuesday, where I think we're gonna start talking about forgiveness and apologies. If you don't make it next Tuesday, hope to see you Thursday, where we will continue reading. I keep wanting to call it before I let go, but makes me want to holler by Nathan McCall. I appreciate you. I value you, and I see you soon, family. Peace. Hey, it worked like I did. Ooh, 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 ooh.